Welcome to At Forest Edge, a podcast for the woman who asks the deeper questions, who finds God in the ancient stories, the forgotten myths, and the hard places of her own life. I'm Rihanna Tilley, a watercolor artist, a storyteller, and a woman who has stood at the edge of the dark wood and found that the light was there all along. Pull up a chair. Let's follow this thread together. I want to talk to the woman who is doing everything right and knows, somewhere underneath all of it, that something is off. Not wrong exactly, not bad. The thing she is doing is good. She is competent at it. She shows up for it faithfully. She has built something real and it has value, and people around her affirm it. And yet, there's a quiet voice. So quiet, she's learned to talk over it. That keeps asking the same question she does not have time to answer. Is this it? Is this the thing? Maybe she has been performing a version of herself for so long that she has almost forgotten it is a performance. She stepped into a role that made sense at the time, or that someone needed her to fill, or that she genuinely believed was hers, and she played it so well that stepping out of it feels like a betrayal. Of who? She isn't sure. Of the role, maybe? Of the people who depend on her in it? Of the version of herself she built and everyone has come to expect. She is not in crisis. She is not failing. She is, from the outside, doing beautifully. And underneath all of that doing, something is whispering that the path she is on, the good, real, valuable, faithful path she is on, is not the one she was made for. This episode is for her, because I have been her, and I want to tell you what I found when the performing finally ran out of road. I love our homestead. I love the soil and the seeds and the particular hope of a seed tray in early spring. All that potential in something so small, all that future in the palm of your hand. There's something deeply right about tending a living thing and watching it respond. I still believe that. A few years ago, I had a vision for our farmers market season. I was going to sell plant starts, which I did, but I also had plans for something more. Bouquets of extraordinary flowers, excess produce from the garden. I had put in hours. I had started everything from seed. I had tended and watered and hoped and planned, and the plan was good. It was genuinely good. It was not born out of vanity or foolishness. I believed in it. And then the summer arrived and took it apart. It was brutal, hot and relentlessly dry in a way that takes the heart right out of a garden. The fire ants came, then the squash bugs, then the Japanese beetles. Everything I had labored over was under siege from every direction simultaneously, and no amount of effort seemed to be turning the tide. I kept working. I worked harder. I worked longer, and slowly I became aware that I was performing, not for an audience, but for the vision of myself I had committed to, the woman who would bring beautiful bouquets to market, the homesteader who had figured out how to make the land produce something extraordinary. I kept showing up for that woman, even as everything she had planned was falling apart around her. There was lime basil that year that smelled like candy. I still think about that lime basil. There were small, beautiful things in the middle of the struggle. There usually are. I made a few bouquets, and they were lovely. But the grand vision did not grow. Not that year. Not that way. And so, one market day, almost without deciding to, I brought my paintings instead. I did not know in that moment that I was stepping onto the path I was actually made to walk. I thought I was filling a gap, substituting what I could offer since the garden had failed to deliver what I had planned. But something happened at that market with my paintings that had never happened in all my hours bent over the soil. People stopped. They were moved. A woman looked at a painting and went quiet in a way that told me something was happening in her that had nothing to do with me. The fruit that appeared that day, the connections, the conversations, the prayers, the something being given and received across the simple table did not come from my striving or my planning or my performing the role of farmer. It came from walking in what I was actually made for. God never called me to be a produce merchant. He made me to be an artist. He made the work of my hands to carry hope to people who needed it. That was always the assignment. The garden was not a failure. It was the place where performing finally ran out of road and the real path became visible. And I never would have found it if the squash bugs hadn't come. There is an ancient story I keep returning to, and I want to tell you about it because it was reaching for the same truth long before I had language for it myself. In the old Greek myth, there's a labyrinth, a great dark maze built to be impossible. So many turns and false corridors and dead ends that no one who enters it has ever found their way back out. The hero, Theseus, is sent into it, and everyone expects him not to return. But before he enters, a woman named Ariadne gives him a thread. It is thin, and it is simple, and it is the most important thing in this story. She ties one end to the entrance of the labyrinth, and she gives him the other end to hold, and she tells him, follow the thread back, and it will lead you out. It does not tell him the layout of the maze. It does not give him a map or a strategy or a vision for which corridor to choose. It just leads him back. One end is held by someone waiting at the entrance, someone who has not gone in with him, but has never let go of her end of the thread. And the thread is always there, even in the darkest part of the labyrinth, even when he cannot see where he is going, even when the corridors all look the same and turning back feels as impossible as going forward. He follows the thread, and it leads him home. Every culture that told a story about a labyrinth was reaching for the same truth, that there are seasons of life that feel like a maze, where we have made so many turns that we cannot remember which direction we came from, where we have been performing and planning and working, and the right path and the wrong path look identical in the dark, where we are genuinely lost, not because we are foolish, but because the labyrinth is designed to confuse even the most capable among us. The thing that leads us out is not a map. It is not a better strategy. It is a thread, thin and constant and already tied at the other end to someone who has never let go. That is what it means to walk in the Spirit, not to have all the answers, not to see the whole path, just to hold the thread and follow it, one step at a time, even in the dark. Galatians 5:25 says, if we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. This verse is so quietly revolutionary that I think it is easy to read past it. Paul is not saying, if you live in the Spirit, make a better plan. He is not saying, if you live in the Spirit, perform more faithfully, produce more evidence of your transformation, work harder at becoming who you are called to be. He says, walk. The Greek word here is stoikeo, and it is worth sitting with because it carries something the English word walk does not quite capture. Stoikeo. To walk in a line, to follow in order, to keep in step. Not a striding or a striving, but a following, the way a soldier keeps in step with the one ahead, the way a child follows the footprints in the snow. It implies that the path is already there, that someone is already walking it, that your part is not to create the way, but to keep in step with the one who is leading. Keep in step. The thread is already in your hand. The Spirit is already moving, already holding the other end, already waiting at the entrance to the labyrinth that you have been trying to navigate on your own. Your part, the part that looks so deceptively simple and is actually the hardest discipline of the spiritual life, is to stop performing the version of yourself you have committed to. Stop forcing the corridors that are not opening and simply follow the thread back to the one who is always waiting at the door. What this looks like in the actual dark. I want to speak to something practical here because I think this is where the teaching can feel abstract and the woman in the labyrinth can feel left behind. Following the thread does not look triumphant. It does not look like a turning point. Most of the time, it looks like one quiet, faithful step in the middle of confusion. Still not sure which way is out. Still not able to see more than a few feet ahead. Still carrying the grief of the plans that did not come together. The market day I brought my paintings was not a revelation. It was a substitution. It was me, a little defeated, showing up anyway with whatever I had. And the Spirit met me there with more than I had planned to bring. The thread does not explain the labyrinth to you. It does not tell you why the squash bugs came, or why the vision you were so sure about did not grow, or why the path you were on, the good, faithful, well-intentioned path, turned out to be the place you had to be lost before you could be found. It just leads you home, one step at a time, in the dark if necessary. And the someone holding the other end is not impatient with how long it takes you to find your way back. He is not standing at the entrance with his arms crossed, wondering why you made so many wrong turns. He gave you the thread before you were in. He has been holding it the whole time. He knew the labyrinth before you entered it, and he knew the way through it, and the thread was always the plan. Hold the thread. Keep walking. The performing version of yourself can rest now. The path that was always yours is already lit. I painted Galatians 5:25. I painted it for someone who needed encouragement to walk in the Spirit, but I didn't realize how much I needed that same encouragement. It helped me to see the image before I could fully hold it as truth. It's an ethereal figure, clothed in light, luminous, barely distinguishable from the atmosphere around the person walking the path, not striding, not walking, and ahead of them, at the end of the path, a doorway, a portal, and everything around it, the sky, the space, the atmosphere, is a galaxy, swirling and glowing, deep blues and luminous golds, the kind of light that suggests something vast and alive and ancient and utterly present all at once. They're not forcing their way through. They're not hacking a path with their own hands. They are walking, stoikeo, in step with something that is already moving, and the doorway ahead of them is not something they built. It was already there. They are simply walking toward it. That is what it looks like to hold the thread. One foot in front of the other, face turned toward the light that is already ahead. Not because she can see the whole way, but because the thread is real, and the one holding the other end is faithful, and the door on the end of the path was always going to be hers. You can find this painting at my website at forestedge.com. If you are in the labyrinth right now, if you've been performing the wrong version of yourself for so long you have forgotten what the right one feels like, I painted this for you. The thread is in your hand, the door is ahead, keep walking. You were made for something specific, not something vague and general, but something particular. A particular kind of work, a particular kind of presence, a particular door at the end of a particular path that has your name on it and has always had your name on it. The labyrinth is real. The performing is real. The season of wrong turns and good faith effort and plans that do not grow, all of it is real, and none of it disqualifies you. The thread has been in your hand the whole time. Walk in the Spirit. Keep in step. Follow the thread back one quiet, faithful step at a time, even in the dark, even when the step feels like a substitution. Even when the market day, where everything changes, looks from the outside like settling for less than you planned. The someone at the other end of the thread has never once let go of his end, and the door he's leading you toward is not smaller than the one you planned for yourself. It is the one you were made for, which means it will fit in a way nothing else ever quite did. The path is already there. The thread is already in your hand, and the door is already lit. Thank you for sitting with me through this one. If you are in the labyrinth right now, if you are performing a version of yourself that is good and real and valuable, but is somehow not quite yours, I want you to know that the thread is already in your hand. You did not lose it. You did not take so many wrong turns that it snapped. It is still there. The one holding the other end has not moved. Hold the thread. Take the next step. Bring your paintings to market. If this episode found someone who's lost in the labyrinth she cannot see the way out of, will you send it to her? She may not have language yet for what she is feeling. Send it anyway. Sometimes the thread arrives in the form of a voice note from a friend who thought of you. And if you want to go deeper between episodes, come find me in the newsletter. It's a mini devotional and a window into whatever's currently on my easel. Until next time, the thread is real, the door is lit, and the path that was always yours is still there, waiting for you to stop performing and simply walk. Thanks for sitting with me a while at the edge of the forest. If today's episode stirred something in you, come find me at forestedge.com. That's where you'll find my art, my book, The Happy Little Sunflower, Finding Hope in the Valley, my newsletter, and a way to reach me directly. I'd love to hear what's on your heart. Until next time, may you keep walking toward the light, even when the path is dark.